Funny story. As I do, I was just looking at the brief for you, and I think we might have some mutual friends. I don't know. You never know how well people actually know each other who are on Instagram or following each other on Instagram. But I
Yeah.
saw you're following a couple of my buds, Brock and Misha. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes. So Brock is one of my main collaborators.
Oh, I
On
knew you sounded familiar for some reason. So maybe he's been posting about you or something like that.
He definitely has.
Okay.
I've actually sort of started, something I'll speak to, self-producing a lot of the music that I write, but um, he was definitely kind of one of the first producers that I worked with that I just clicked with, and I felt that could really kind of supplement what I could do by myself and add his own magic and just another element to what I got going on. And so he's the best. We both
Crazy.
our,
Small
our
world.
families are from Mississippi,
Right,
and
right.
so we kind of share that bond. We joke that we're starting the Mississippi music mafia in Los
There you
Angeles.
go. Triple M.
And Misha, like Dreamhouse Misha.
Yeah.
Cool. I've actually never met him in person, but he did.
Misha Hercules. Shout
Okay.
out, Misha.
Shout out Misha.
Yeah.
He did a remix of my song Find the Feeling and took it to this kind of like acid house place that I would have never expected. And it was just so cool.
Cool.
But we got connected through a friend in London.
Nice. Well, I mean, it could have been through Brock too, because him and Brock go way back too, I think. So,
Wild.
yeah,
Crazy.
pretty. And uh, for the casual listener, well, I guess they can check out both of those guys in your credits somewhere, right?
Definitely, for sure. Yeah.
All right. So, but back to you, Austin. So why don't you take us all the way back? It looks like you pretty much grew up in Los Angeles, but I guess Mississippi is your kind of your home state. So why don't you take me all the way back and tell me how you got into music?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in LA and spent most of my schooling life here, but my whole family is from a small town called Meridian, Mississippi. And whenever the cutoff that an infant is allowed on a plane, that's when I was on the plane down south. And so it's been kind of just this consistent theme throughout my life. All my extended family is there. And the South and Southern music heritage and culture has really kind of influenced the artist I am today and my music. But I've had quite the career that has stumbled and turned and twisted multiple ways to end up where I am today. I started playing when I was 5 years old. My grandma, there's not direct musical talent between my mom and dad, but my grandma on my dad's side was a lounge singer at the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood for years, and so we think that's where I got it from. But I played it. It's in my blood somewhere. But I played instrument. Started guitar and piano when I was 5 years old, and really took it seriously. And ended up joining a band when I was around 13 that had the opportunity to play at Coachella.
What?
Which was pretty wild and strange, but
awesome.
But amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually playing bass in that band. It was the definition of fake it till you make it. I was a guitar player, but that role was already filled, and I had the opportunity. And I just, I was like, oh, if I can play guitar, I can play bass. And I think they were just so desperate to find another 13-year-old who could, play well enough to fit the band. It was this weird kind of School of Rock situation.
Okay.
But it was cool, and I think that's where I really got a taste of, of being on stage, playing in a band. We were rehearsing 8 hours a day after school. And it allowed me to sink my teeth into a music project early and really understand like that level of commitment that it takes.
Right.
But from there, I was just a high school kid that, was trying to work hard to get into a good college and do what I had to do. I was studying jazz throughout my whole high school experience. I did a couple of summers at Berklee School of Music, and
nice.
Keeping my chops up and writing like always came natural to me and was super important to me to like stay serious about music and my craft. But I was never surrounded by mentors or like-minded peers that were really pushing me towards a career in music.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up, heading to University of Pennsylvania and getting an economics degree and just continuing to kind of do like what I thought I was supposed to be doing.
Right.
As many of us find ourselves in that situation. And it really took joining the workforce and working a corporate job for 4 years, after college, that to really realize, oh my God, this is so not right for me. And I realized very quickly on, but I was working at a tech job at Google, actually, in the Bay Area.
Not bad.
And yeah, exactly. It was like the golden handcuffs. I was sitting there like, man, people would kill to be in the position I'm in. And I'm just so not passionate. I'm not here. I'm not really, giving my fullest and highest self to this work. And so that's when I really started, my finesser brain came on, and I got my way back to LA. I transferred offices while still working for the company. I got my band together by starting to play for other artists, and I met my bandmates along the way and in other bands. As just a hired guitar player. I met my bass player, I met my drummer, I met my pianist, and started getting my foot in the door as a session player, and really just doing everything I could in my off hours to push, get some momentum going on the creative side of my career and start Austin Ward and really just kind of get things going. And it took 3 years of kind of cutting my teeth in, between. I finally left that tech job, but then had a brief stint on the business side of music, which wasn't for me. But, it was a lot of trying to make things work in my night hours, and just push things forward while I was making ends meet during the day.
Sure.
But I think, I'm just so grateful to be in the position now to be doing this full time and to have all of my effort and heart focused on it. And it's only up from here, hopefully.
Congrats. That's a big achievement. So I love that term you use, golden handcuffs. I've heard of golden parachutes. I've heard of golden handshakes. I haven't heard of golden handcuffs. So I like that. When you got a good situation, but it's just not the situation you're supposed to be in.
Totally. Yeah.
And so when you were playing these session gigs, were you doing guitar work? Were you doing bass? Were you doing everything anything you could find?
I was mainly playing guitar. I had friends just from sort of growing up in LA that, never went to college, jumped into music immediately. They're managers, artists, etc. And one of my good friends started a management company called Bad Habit that has now grown to be something, quite successful. They also are sort of an imprint label under Atlantic. They have artists like Umi, Burna Boy, Goody Grace, The Neighborhood, a bunch of really cool breaking talent. And so I was lucky enough to know him and kind of leverage his network to at least get my foot in the door to get a few of my first gigs. I was playing guitar for a guitar and bass, actually, for 3 of their sort of new signees that they were developing. And then from there, that naturally extended to getting in the studio with those artists and, just getting my name out there in that regard. And I really, put that foot forward prior to even thinking about starting Austin Ward and my own artist project. And I was always writing. I had a collection of songs that I knew I wanted to bring to life, but I felt like I just needed to immerse myself in sort of the world and scene and be surrounded by like-minded music peers that are actually doing this as a career for the first time. Which was an experience I really never had before.
Yeah, the people you surround yourself with, you get all that just peripheral knowledge, and it just starts seeping into your conscious and your subconscious, you know what I mean? And
Totally.
it's just inspiring. I remember when I first moved to Los Angeles, still to this day, some of my best friends, they're all in kind of the visual arts. So I was learning all this stuff about, graphic design and 3D design and everything when we would just hang out. But I was like, I need to start hanging out with more musicians. You know what I mean? Because then I would be,
Yeah.
then that's the kind of knowledge I need to get more of, So it's so true
Yeah.
that the people you hang out with are huge as far as influencing where you can go or where you do go.
Yeah, and it's all through learning through osmosis and
Yeah.
and just showing up and doing your job, and that's all you can do. And that's what I did for every night after I would clock out for 3 years,
Right.
just to force it to happen, to start happening.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're working your side gig or your real gig, your paycheck gig, and then you're
Yeah.
slowly starting to build up more of these music based gigs where you're working as a studio musician, and this whole time you're kind of plotting. You got some music you're going to do, but you want to saturate yourself in the scene a little bit more and make sure it's what you want. So when did you decide it was like, all right, I'm ready to start doing my thing now?
I think there wasn't some breaking moment, but I think I had, the initial sort of passion or like longing to start an artist project was to play live. I think getting a taste playing for other artists and just kind of, getting my sea legs and on stage really inspired me to get up there and share my own music. And I think that was like that was the catalyst that really pushed me to be like, okay, let's get some songs written, recorded, and so I can get on stage and share these with people.
Right.
And so I started gigging around LA at some of the cool indie clubs to play, the Echo, Moroccan Lounge, Peppermint Club, pre having like a project out.
Okay.
Had started dropping singles, but didn't have the body of work out that I do now. And I think that was so inspiring, like I mentioned, but B, vital to my writing process and to really help me understand like my artistic identity. You learn so much about yourself and your material every time you get on stage. What's working, what's not, what songs feel like part of the body of work that should, or the discography, and what songs end up really not feeling that way or not resonating. And so playing consistently, I think, was a huge learning experience and was definitely the thing that pushed me to kind of keep the artist project rolling and get it started in the first place.
Yeah. So you finally start writing your own stuff and recording it, and you're getting ready to do it, and you're playing some of the and those venues. For people who don't live in Los Angeles, those are like those are great small medium-sized venues. Those are like the venues, the Echo and the Moroccan Lounge and that sort of thing. I saw that you played, you mentioned you played really young at Coachella, which is epic, but you also played a gig at the Whisky Go-Go when you were really young at 13.
Yeah, I did. And the Roxy.
Nice. Was that the same band that you were playing with at Coachella?
It was, yeah. It was a band called Jupiter's Ring. We were a bunch of music students that were united by that really didn't know each other, but all had the same music teacher. And long story short, we ended up kind of getting a set together and offered to play at noon on Saturday at Coachella in 2008. And from there, we played a gig at the Whisky, put a gig at the Roxy, and then did a little tour around Mississippi in the South, Mississippi and Louisiana. And then us 14-year-olds split due to creative differences.
Yeah.
and we went our separate ways, but many of them are still doing music and are finding success, which is super cool to see.
Nice. So I also read before, taking on your own project fully, I guess you were working as a producer also, right?
A bit. Actually, I'd say the production side of me kind of came out somewhat recently at the start of quarantine, when I was self-producing a lot of this, project I just released, side A, and starting to produce for others, and I got management, and they started sending production opportunities my way. But I'd say I first got my feet wet as a session player.
Right.
I was kind of assisting the main producers who were manning the session, manning the computer, and just the instrumentalist in the room, playing guitar, bass, keys, whatever they really needed.
Right. It sounded like you had some pretty legit producing gigs, though. You produced for G-Eazy and for your one of the people in your circle, Umi, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So how did those come about? I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So Umi was a product of working with Bad Habit, and actually was kind of one of those early on opportunities when I just moved back to LA. I've been working with her and alongside this producer, Cecil, and Patrick Majors, since she was still a student at USC. I was actually in the room when she pressed the dropout button.
Nice.
And I was in the room the night before she played, or the night before she released "Remember Me," which ended up being her song that kind of catapulted her to the level of success that she's reached now. So I've known her and I've been working with her far before, the fame and the New Deal. And so it's been really cool to kind of have that experience of meeting an artist like that so early on in their journey, and then seeing them grow and flourish and bloom. Like, wow, like pretty, once one of a kind of situation, and inspired me to kind of keep going. That was definitely a big piece of momentum that I was holding on to, and eventually kind of pushed me to leave the corporate world. But yeah, so sessions with her were really showing up as an instrumentalist, and trying to just provide the musicality for the room. And the G-Eazy side, that was a blessing of quarantine. And what I'm coming to really believe and understand more and more is that music and life are just one and the same. They're so intertwined. One of my best friends since elementary school is an A&R, not much of a musician, used to play drums, but sadly in March, just before quarantine hit, his dad passed away. And so in the beginning of quarantine, we were spending a bunch of time together, just, hanging, being there for him, trying to get his mind off things, and just jamming just for fun, no intention. And, now that I have management and I'm in sessions every day, and, you always feel like it's so hard to just write with no intention. That was one of those experiences of we were just creating to create, because we were being there for each other. And we ended up creating a bunch of these kind of Radiohead-esque instrumentals that were just purely born out of like human connection, him and I. And serendipitously, he had a connection to G, who I really, I've never met many, I've met him a couple of times through my friend, but was by no means in his camp or circle. And I'm not a hip hop producer. And so, but he was working on this quarantine project that was leaning, inspired by the Pixies, inspired by Radiohead. And these instrumentals ended up fitting that bill. And, you can work on a song for a year and nothing really ever comes of it. And then these were instrumentals we made in a night just because we were being there for each other, and eventually being, the biggest kind of opportunity I've had. So
yeah, that's crazy. Sometimes just that lack of expectation, can help you put your guard down just to have fun. And sometimes that comes through in the music,
Totally.
Sometimes the best music sounds the most effortless,
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's crazy. So has that dropped yet? Or because I don't know if I've heard of that project from G-Eazy. Has that EP dropped or album that he's working on?
Yeah, it's called Everything's Strange Here.
Okay, actually, yeah, I did see that. I did see that. Okay, so one of those is an Austin Ward original, huh?
Two of them, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, which epic. Never would have predicted that would be one of my first cuts. So I'm far more in the indie folk alternative kind of world, R&B world. but happy to be a part of it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how much that all the lines are blurred nowadays, you know. I
Yeah.
mean,
What is genre?
Machine Gun Kelly just dropped pop punk album, you know, so it's you know, anything's possible.
Yeah, totally.
So tell us a little bit about side A and side B. You know, it's your two EP debut. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and what to expect from that.
Yeah. So side A, which just came out a week and a half ago now, is the first sort of body of work that really symbolizes and kind of represents and speaks to where I've been. You know, it's a collection of songs that span from some of the first I've ever written, namely Honeysuckle, which is kind of like a poem almost, and is the final track on that project, just a very simple kind of folk, you know, raw cut that, you know, about loss of innocence and my time growing up in Mississippi and you know, childhood and those kinds of themes. You know, to find the feeling, and which I did with Brock, shout out Brock, and
Yeah.
some of you know, the later stuff that shows how I really was kind of maturing into myself as an artist as I've started to really take you know, this seriously as a career. And it's a really eclectic, kind of warm, cathartic body of work that again really speaks to this changing of the guard in myself over the past 2 years. And growing into the person that I feel like I was made to be, which is has been an exciting and terrifying and cathartic exercise. And so I'm so thrilled to have that out in the world. And I'm well underway on side B, which, contrary is to side A, is sort of a look into where I'm going. There's some political commentary on the record, kind of you know, looking at the state of the world that we're subjected to, it feels like, at the moment. And you know, new love, which I was fortunate to find in quarantine, and just how you know, the kind of matured Austin Ward, who has had a few years to cut his teeth, is now growing, and really thrilled to share that and to start rolling that out, which I think will happen just after the holidays. But was in the studio this past weekend cutting a string quartet for the first time in my life.
Nice.
Seeing arrangements that I wrote translated by amazing players back to me was just such a joy.
That's rad. Yeah.
And yeah, looking like it'll be another 10-track project, and then a full kind of album project that draws from both of these EPs, with some additions coming spring of next year. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really rad concept for, I think, especially for someone who has this content that's kind of, you know, you've had it for a while, but also, you know, you're going to be making more content, because I feel like I've talked with a lot of artists who wait or sit too long on their songs, and they're kind of like, oh, I never put these out, and I don't even feel like this is me anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
But through your, you know, your theme for these EPs, it's like, it's okay if that's not you anymore, because that's what the theme of that EP is. It's the past, and get ready for the future stuff I'm writing right now.
Exactly. I think that's a great point, and an important lesson that artists and writers have to sort of learn, is that, you know, unfortunately, the nature of the business is, from creation to release is usually you know, very far apart. And patience is a very important you know, attribute to have. But I think there is, you know, that music, although it may no longer feel like it's you now, and you've grown and you've changed in so many different ways, it will find people, and that initial intention, that initial energy behind whatever that song or body of work was, I think is still holds as true as it did when you were, you know, so excited about that demo that you rapped at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, side A has, you know, some songs that were birthed from this quarantine period, which again was kind of this very, you know, strangely beautiful time for me in the midst of chaos, to really kind of go within myself and hone my skills as a producer and self-produce and feel empowered in that way for the first time. But also songs that I've been holding on for a while, and it's just a nice kind of, this is representative of my first kind of swing. But side B is just, it's just going to take it to another level. I'm so excited to get that music out.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, it can be a good thing, because a lot of times people will love the new stuff you make because they understand where it was coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they can see that progression, and if they happen to like the older stuff, they still may appreciate the newer stuff because they know where the starting point was, and vice versa. You know, so
absolutely, yeah.
That's really rad. So, Austin, thanks so much. It was a pleasure meeting you. I guess we've been in the similar circles for a while, but it was a pleasure talking to you and hearing about the new EP. We like to finish the interview just by asking, if you had one piece of advice for aspiring artists, what would it be?
Wow. I would say it's to wake up every day and just recognize the privilege of loving a craft and being so passionate about creation and letting that fuel you, and never letting, you know, the politics, the monotony, the bureaucracy seemingly of how, you know, from creation to release, as we just spoke about, not letting any of that weigh you down, and just letting that, you know, just the privilege of being so passionate about something drive you every single day. And just show up and do your job, and opportunities will unfold if you just say yes and are open to them. That's it right there.
That's great. No, it's funny you say that. I was just thinking a day or two ago how it's such a great way of putting it, how lucky you can be to have a passion, because some people you'll talk to, they don't know what their passion is. They don't have a passion, or they haven't found it. So to know what you love, you know, gives you a sense of purpose and direction. So
exactly.
It really is a blessing to know, you know, to have discovered that about yourself. And actually, and you know, and you have to have at least a little bit of ability, you know.
True.
But that passion can pull you a long way, you know. The higher the passion, the longer you can go, you know.
Absolutely. And to not be, you know, narrow-minded in what the universe is throwing your way, and closed off to things that at first may not seem like right for you or what you had intended. You know, I see artists that are so stuck on the artist path, and yet they're getting opportunities to aid to other artists' visions, and they shy away from that. I've taken the opposite approach. I love producing for others. I love working for others and enhancing other people's visions.
Right.
And just enjoying all of it, because it's all music, and music is fun, and music is what I love to do. So.